This is a school in Hong Kong. It's from a few years back called Infinity Children's Montessori School. These children, 3 to about 6, are going to be preparing a meal for their parents. We're not talking about peanut butter and jelly. You're going to see what type of meal this is. Unique. So we'll talk about it afterwards. So here you go. Yeah, right? How many of you felt a little bit concerned? Anybody? Okay, yeah, but there's knives, there's a stovetop, chicken, raw chicken with the fingers. So I could tell you in America, I don't know what the laws are here in the UAE, but America, most of this would be illegal. Okay, now I personally think it shouldn't be illegal, but that's the case because we have that anxiety as adults. And I'm not immune to that anxiety. I have a child of my own about 1.5 years now. They didn't just get thrown into this environment, right? This wasn't their first day in Montessori. They had some development, which we'll talk about. But yeah, some of this could be seen as dangerous. Okay, anything else? Yep, and then. So this is about 3 to 6, and I'd say most of the children I'm looking at are about 3 to 5, actually. So, yep. And did you want to? What we think children are capable of is down here, and what they're actually capable of if we guide them in a certain environment. This is what's possible. This type of foundation is huge, which we'll talk more about. Okay. Anything else before I move on? Yeah. Yeah, you got a lot to do as parents. You got a lot to do now. I mean, it's all a process, but yeah, I would say you might start changing your kitchens up when you see some of the stuff we'll talk about. Yeah. So this was just something. Hey, I need to start trusting my princess a little more. I think I just want her to be a baby just a little longer than I care to admit. She just started using a toaster and she's about to be 9 years old. I don't think that's crazy to feel as a parent because we've been bred to think we need to do everything for them. They're incapable. They're little children. But that's not actually the reality. Montessori is kind of behind a door in this picture because I didn't start out kind of drinking the Montessori Kool-Aid. Actually, I was a relatively traditional school teacher, and I started out in 8th grade vocab classroom. But down the hall was this Montessori classroom because we had Montessori schools next door. So there was a little window. Now you guys have these beautiful big glass windows. You could see the children. In some schools, the parents get to look through this little window at their kid. And that was me. So I wasn't a parent, but I was a teacher, and I saw down the hall, they're working with the little kids. And me, I'm doing the real stuff with the older kids, the 7th and 8th graders. That's where the real learning happens. And every now and again, I'd go by and go, what are they doing in there? And so as I started to develop, I started to look more and more until I started to observe, which I recommend you do and talk with it. Sit down and just see. So I'd sit down, I'd go into this classroom, and I'd see these children there doing incredible things. Not quite this Hong Kong style. This is like, you don't get this that often, but pretty incredible stuff. And then I would go back to my classroom. And there's desks just like this, traditional style. I was doing some cool stuff, but it's still traditional. And these 13 and 14-year-olds were nowhere near as independent as these 3 and 4-year-olds. And I was shocked. And I was the teacher. I was a part of this kind of dependence breeding type of class. I remember this one day I walked in, and there's a child older than this, but usually they'll raise their hands. Maybe they're excited about something they're learning. This child's like, and I'm like, oh yeah, what would you like to ask? He's like, can I use the bathroom? And it just hit me because I had just been in the Montessori classroom. If they need to use the restroom, they just go. I mean, literally right there. They go to the restroom, but they go to the restroom on their own. If they want to do something, they get it. They need a Kleenex, they get up and get it. They don't ask the teacher for permission. But this 13, 14-year-old was raised to ask. So it just dawned on me, something's really wrong with what I'm doing. So that was kind of my early development up. And then slowly from a teacher, became a head of school, then started speaking on Montessori and education generally, and started building schools around the country. So the main areas, we had Southern California, so Orange County, California, you're familiar with, San Francisco and New York City, and then some in Virginia. So we just built schools. And then I jumped out and did my own independent thing, which my wife has a little schoolhouse now. So that's kind of my growth up. But this comparison I want you guys to be thinking about as we go through. This is Maria Montessori. She's Dr. Maria Montessori. She said, to consider the school as the place where instruction is given is one point of view, but to consider the school as a preparation for life is another. So that's the contrast. Over here, I'm giving children information, and they're going to do something with it later. I'm kind of like Google. I'm this Google up here just giving information. Here, I'm preparing you for life. That's the idea. Those are the contrasts. And then, as I said, she was a doctor, so she was one of the first female physicians in Italy. She was a scientist. So, a lot of the stuff that we'll talk about today was literally her observing children, saying, does it work? She had this little schoolhouse with mixed ages, and she said, let's see what works, what doesn't work. Let's look at these children, actually understand them. This is another video. How many of you have infants here? Okay, so this is a girl. Her name is Ruby. I just want you to observe. So I want you to get in that mindset of, as Montessorians, we observe the child. What do they need? But we can't know what they need unless we're looking at them. So 6 months old, she's going to be reaching for a toy. I just want you to observe. All right? So what do you think about this one? Any feelings that came up during this video? So I think that reaction is most people's reaction, including my own. I've seen this hundreds of times. I'm getting to the point where I wouldn't want to push it to her, but it's that many times that it takes. And I think the point that you raised is really important. She didn't ask for help. She gave no sign that she needed help, but we feel inside like, oh no, she needs help. Let me push this to her too. So where is that coming from? It's not coming from observation because we're not seeing her actually ask for our help or showing any need. So at the root of Montessori is we first observe. Who is this child in front of us? And this is Ruby, this is a unique child. Your child might be the one who starts wailing, and that's a sign that push the toy closer. This isn't like independence, no, get that toy. We need to observe first, right? So I just wanted to show this because Maria Montessori was a scientist. This was not about like, I'm gonna sit in my college classroom and think up some theories about children. We're gonna implement it. No, I'm gonna observe children first, see what works, see what they're about, and then develop some things based on that. So that's the process. So help me to do it alone. At a core level, that's what Montessori is all about. So we're just helping the child to do it alone. That's really the core. So we've got observation in Montessori, and then Montessori is a preparation for life. Everything we're doing is not just so they'll go from, I remember when I was a teacher, it was like, oh, well, fourth grade, what do they really need in fourth grade? Can you guys guess what they need in fourth grade? In traditional school. Whatever's needed for fifth grade. And in fifth grade? Yeah. And then when they graduate college, they have no clue what life is like, but I'm ready. No, you're not. So preparation for life. And this is an overview, just like to give you a sense of what we're going to do. It's pretty simple. The main part I'm going to focus on is preparation for life. What's Montessori all about? Kind of giving you a peek behind that door. I'm going to start with a question about the future for you guys, because this school is, their whole thing is let's get these children ready for the future. We don't know what the future is going to be, but let's get them ready so they can handle whatever comes at them, right? And then Q&A pushback. I'm pretty serious about Q&A and pushback because in my field, it's a little bit cultish in Montessori, just be direct. There's some people that are just like, oh, this is the way it needs to be. And I'll go to talks and people are just like, yes, yes, yes. I'm like, if you have something you think is wrong or disagree, push back and be like, no, this sounds like nonsense, Jesse. Well, this would never actually work. Just push back, all right? So that will be the end. If you have a question during, feel free to raise your hand. If it makes sense to answer, then I'll do it. But if not, we'll put it towards the end. All right, question about the future. How do you envision your child at 25? What is that? Happy. Yeah, happy's a huge one, right? And that happy, I'm just going to go with the assumption that we all want our children to be happy. I'm not going to focus like this is the goal, but happiness is probably underneath everything. We want somebody to be happy. Yeah. Oh, a winner? Aware of their surroundings. Yeah, yeah. Go for it. Confidence, self-confident. I can achieve things. I can do this. Yeah. Anything else? Independence. I want them to be able to do things on their own. And independence doesn't mean like, oh, to hell with everybody else. It means I can do this. And maybe I need some friends to do this with me. But it's independence is I can do this. So independence, self-confidence. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah, critical thinkers. Can you think for yourself about the world and in a way that actually makes sense versus just absorbing? I'm in America right now, which is a strange place to be right now. I'm sure you guys are seeing the news. But it's just that sometimes we've got this binary, like I'm either in this group or that group. Am I thinking about what are these groups about? Do I really agree with everything? No, which is, oh, that's my group. That's my group. We got to get out of that thing and be critical thinkers. Yeah. Yeah, it's who I am. I'm a unique individual self. And a lot of Montessori is building up yourself. Who am I going to be? Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. So we see things in ourselves that we might want to improve on ourselves and say, I want my child to not be like these things, right? And I would say the core, by the way, if you want your child to not be like that, what we need to do as adults, work on ourselves. I mean, that's another root thing of Montessori is you need to look within. So, yeah. Nobody's mentioned anything about being, a community. I'm curious about that. That's what you were just about to say? Okay. Yeah, and I think Dubai, this is such an interesting place even for me to be because the different cultures integrated and so there are places in America, obviously we're a melting pot and different, but this is unique because it's like, what is it, 80% international community here? So building a sense of community, connecting with others, because Montessori is often thought of like, oh, these independent people, which is definitely the case. But you can't even be independent if you cannot work with other people. So that's going to be a big part of this conversation today. So I'll go through, you guys have listed a lot of the things that basically I'm going to go through, but 3 of the main ones I'm going to focus on. There's so many more. One is independence, okay? Next one is self-confidence. And then this is the last one. I'm putting it as connection. Because there's one thing with a community, we can build a community, but can you really be connected? We really want to connect with others. So these, I'm going to put them down here because I want to always be thinking about these three. And there's more, of course, but I can't cover everything. So I'm going to keep the kind of doctor thing and the scientist thing because I want you to think of this as we're observing children, actually like really thinking about them like a scientist, right? A man does not just happen, he does not just grow like a flower. Interestingly, out here, not much grows. So even flowers don't quite grow just easily. But the idea is like, we really need to be thinking about what does it take for a child to become an adult? You know, like if we go from this crying baby that we all have seen, dependent, to kind of, this person, I can do what I want in the world. How do you get there? In biology, we actually are observing things. With children, we need to start observing like we are scientists. So Montessori said, we need an environment. We need an environment that helps them to get from A to B, right? And that's what basically today I'll be talking about is the Montessori environment. And we think of it as the environment itself that you guys walk into the classrooms around here and you see. What's the environment like? Is this a place that is actually conducive to children developing these type of outcomes and the others that you said? Or is it a place where they're just going to wither? What's the environment like? So that's what we're going to focus on. So the first thing I'll talk about is practical life. You see the child cutting an orange, right? And it's not just in Hong Kong that kids are cutting oranges. Here's another child cutting an orange in a classroom, different knife. It's obviously not just oranges. We've got bananas. This is in Nashville, Tennessee at a Montessori school. This is at a schoolhouse that my wife runs. She's cutting apples with that little apple cutter. And I'll talk about with the connection part, if you notice she's got some toothpicks. She'll be eating some while she's cutting. This is what children do. But she's also putting some toothpicks in there to share with some friends. So she's doing this as a part of the connection as well. These kids, again, this is not going to happen here in Dubai, but they're growing crops in their field. This is in South Florida. Well, actually, northern Florida. Oh, you guys, well, I mean, to a certain extent, like this is outside, they're growing these things, but yeah, I think it can happen. And here there's actually an area where they're doing stuff like this. When it's interesting to come to Dubai, how many of you have been to Vegas? So I don't think of Dubai exactly like Vegas, but Vegas, they've created a place in the desert that would have never existed before. So it's amazing. So not that you guys can't grow crops, but it's a different world when you could just put a seed down and it grows outside, And then you have the kids in Hong Kong, just the look. I love this picture because it's like the look on their faces. This is pure joy. And this isn't joy like we're just running around playing, which is awesome too. It's that we did every step of the way they did that. That's confidence, that's joy. That's like, oh my gosh. And they're serving it to their parents? It's crazy. It's crazy. So practical life, and it's not just food. Washing your hands. Now, all of us, we all know how to wash our hands, and post-COVID, we really know how to wash our hands. But kids, it takes work to figure it out. It takes work. So in Montessori, we take the steps to help them to figure that out and to work with it, whether it's washing hands, wiping the windows. And these are things that normally we wouldn't think of kids doing. But let's have a helper do it, or I'll have to do it. But kids love to be like us, so they want to do the things that adults do, right? So cleaning the windows. Pouring water. Kids love water. I'm in awe that you guys have this water room over here. Have you guys seen this? I've never seen that. I've never seen that at any school that I've ever been. I've been to hundreds and hundreds of schools, so it's pretty cool. Kids love water. So she's learning to pour that from the jug to a glass. This girl is 2.9 years old. If you guys have a child that age, go at home and see if you get a jug, put some water in, have them pour into a glass. It can be a little messy at first, right? But this is the type of thing we're doing. This is not a Montessori child, it's Thomas Edison. He loved Montessori. He was a huge supporter of Montessori. And as Geraldine said, Montessori's been around for a long time. So, kids 100 years ago doing the same type of things. But this is what Thomas Edison said about Montessori. Montessori makes learning a pleasure. It follows the natural instincts of the human being. Now, Thomas Edison is probably one of the most brilliant creators of the past. And this is what he's saying about this program, Montessori. I take it pretty significantly when somebody like this says something. But he says the instincts of the human being. The instincts is to copy our parents, to copy the adults. So, or it could be to copy the nanny, which is totally fine. But somebody has to be doing this type of work, and the child has to see them doing it so they can absorb it to gain the, I can take care of myself. And in Montessori, what we do, again, is to like, if I just put on my clothes in front of my son, I'm like, oh, and he tries it, it's going to be a mess, which actually I'll show you later. But we need to aid them step by step so that they can do it on their own. So this is a Montessori classroom. She's supposed to be, the dirty water is supposed to be going into the bucket. Obviously, it didn't land in the bucket. So as a parent at home, what would this be like for you? So most people, it's like, oh, and especially if you need to get out the house or do something, it's like, but we're trained to have the patience that this is our work. This is what we do. With this age group, right, this is what we do. So, oh, looks like the water spilled. Let's go clean it up. Now, I'm not saying every day you can get that calm, but that's the calm. And as parents, listen, I'm a parent myself. That's a deep calm to get. I'm not saying you got to get that calm, but that's what we are trained to do with children, to have that patience. Let's go clean up. So it's not like, oh my God, did I mess up again? You don't want a child to feel that. You want to feel like, oh, it takes a little bit of work. And then 20, 30 times later, it gets in the bucket, right? So I can do this. Here's Maria Montessori. Progress is not linear. And I'm not just talking about children, right? For us. Could you imagine if we could have the feeling that, oh yeah, we can mess up like that all the time? And then we'll get it in the bucket later. Instead of feeling like, oh man, I'm a failure, I can't do this. At a deep level, Montessori is about giving, or not even giving, but setting the environment in which a child can develop that sense of self. I can do this. Yeah, it's going to be hard. I can mess up, but I'm going to do this. This is actually my own son. My wife just filmed this like a few days ago. She was peeking around the corner and she realized that she saw that he's just trying to put his own shorts on in the room. So she just snuck around the corner. So I'm going to show you. And then he went back to it. So again, observing. We know the difference as parents between, okay, don't step in, between like, flipping out, I'm gonna step in. This is what happens when a child's trying it on his own, right? He's gonna fail, he's gonna mess up. Again, in Montessori, what we're doing is saying, okay, how can we guide a little bit so they can do it a little bit better? And it aids them to get it a little bit, maybe even a little bit quicker, maybe that they're not so frustrated. And then you can have fun too. When you messing up can be fun. If we can get that sense of messing up can be fun, oh man, can you imagine the future? Messing up can be fun. So what we do, just to give you an example, if a young child with their small fingers you're trying to teach them how to button like this, it's much, much harder to look down and try to button your shirt. So Montessori came up with these frames without buttons, zippers, and so forth, so they can practice on the table first with the buttons. So I've isolated one skill, how to do the buttons. Then when I'm looking down, I've already got that skill and I can use it here. So it's step-by-step progress. So it's aiding them to get ready. Tying your shoes. That's a huge deal for children. We think of it like, well, just get your shoes on, we gotta get out of the house. But they wanna be able to do it. But it takes so much work. And again, if you're looking down at your shoes, it's harder. So on the table, either on the floor or on the table, they'll learn to tie. And then they can transfer that skill to the shoe. And something I found interesting, so this is an old Jeff Bezos. Have you guys seen the new Jeff Bezos, by the way? He's like, rah. But I just thought I'd get the old Jeff Bezos. I love the old Jeff Bezos. But Jeff Bezos is a Montessori child. I don't know how many of you know, but he's creating Montessori schools in the States. Are you guys aware of this? So he's putting $1 billion into creating schools. And these are actually low-income schools that are free to the children. But this is what he said. I went to Montessori school for about 1.5 years, starting probably at age 2.5. I have these very clear visual images of tracing out letters on sandpaper. I'm not going to get into those, but I remember having a little special board that you can use to practice tying your shoes. This is at, I don't know how old, he might have been like 35 at that time. He's remembering what he was doing at 2.5, 3.5 in Montessori. And I found that to be consistent with most Montessori children that are adults. They'll remember things that, man, I wouldn't remember a thing from that age. And they're remembering these materials in the classroom. It's pretty impressive. And another thing he said, which I think is very cool, and I'm not getting into the details of it, but he said, if there is a problem, there is a solution. That's his mindset. So whatever one might think about Jeff Bezos, I know it's kind of controversial. Jeff Bezos is controversial. The point is he's created something that's insanely huge. And he solved some very, very, very difficult problems along the way in very, very creative ways. And this man thinks it's so important in education to do Montessori-inspired schools, and he's spending $1 billion. So that says something about what he thinks aided him in his own life. Now, if you don't have this, I think this is important for you guys being in Dubai. A lot of schools are in very wealthy areas. We have to be very careful that with the wealth, that we aren't kind of impoverishing children in a weird way. So this is a show called Rich Girls. This is the daughter of a very wealthy clothing person in the States. She just graduated high school. I think she was 17 or 18 years old. And she was at her dad's mansion, and he had left. And she was home alone, and she did not know how to take care of herself, okay? So I want to show you this video.
It's a fine day, people open windows, they leave their houses just for a short while.
You know, when you kind of have like just nothingness and like not even anything to be upset about, but you just are. Dad, I'm really confused. And Dad, I just feel really lonely. And Dad, what am I going to do with my life? I'm so confused. And I also don't want to be living at home for the rest of my life, and I don't want you to be supporting me for the rest of my life, and I want to get my own place. I just feel so lost, you know? There's no food in the house. I mean, like, parents are supposed to make their children's life easy all the time, you know? It's just, like, I'm not gonna, like, have you, like, there, you know, in a jiffy my whole life. You know, I had to deal with stuff like this, you know?
This girl's 17 years old. Later, she was unable to she wanted to make a burrito. She got all the ingredients. She just had another breakdown because she couldn't make it. And when we think about those kids in Hong Kong, it's so insane. They're 3, 4 years old. That confidence that you can get developed over time is huge. But if we give everything to the child, we're always there when they're in trouble, it can lead to problems. Here's Maria Montessori about this. Success in life depends on a self-confidence born of a true knowledge of one's own capacity. So I don't know if you guys know the Spanish phrase, si se puede. Do you know that? Yes, you can. Si se puede. That's like somebody else telling you you can. We all know when you're not feeling too well, it doesn't matter what anybody else is telling you, it has to come from within. So Montessori is about developing from within. Having supportive parents, supportive teachers, but ultimately it's yourself. You know? So that's practical life. I spent a lot of time on it because I think it's hugely important. Next one is freedom within limits. When I say freedom within limits, I think most people focus on the freedom because it's like, when I say your children should have freedom, what images come to mind with that? A little bit of chaos? You can be honest. A lot of chaos. There you go. Okay. We got an honest person. A lot of chaos because freedom just means do whatever. And I think of, painting the walls, but these walls would be in the house. You know what I'm saying? Like if you just gave all freedom. So I want to just get that myth out of there. Montessori is not about freedom to do whatever you want. All right. She was very explicit about this. This is in her biography by one of her friends. An environment in which children are simply physically free to run about and play is not enough. That, says Montessori, is the kind of freedom we give to cats and lizards. So you can imagine a cat and a lizard playing around, and this is not what you want. It's fun. We definitely have time to play. The kids are having a blast. But freedom doesn't just mean here's a room, do whatever you want. Not much growth occurs there. Now, there's a time for that. There's a time for play. There's a time for just being children running around. But that cannot be everything. So if you notice, she says, it is not enough. We want it. We want that play. We want that, but it's not enough. So freedom within limits is what I go through. And when I say limits, though, when we think with the old school limits, it's more of like traditional school, and it's scary because it's desk upon desk. And then we were just talking about last night, Geraldine, with these handouts or worksheets. Every worksheet's the same. Your children, they're all exactly the same in traditional school. And I was a traditional school teacher. I knew it was so hard. You'd have to teach the average. Because if the high guy, I don't have time to give him extra work. The low person, I don't have time to delve into it. So I teach to the average. And I'm telling you, no matter what a traditional school teacher tells you, that is the ultimate thing that you have to teach to, because you can't deal with all those different children. In Montessori, we have freedom within limits. Here, we have the limit, here's the classroom, here's materials, and you are free to choose in that. Now, instead of me explaining it, giving a lecture, I thought, let's just give you a look into a classroom. So this is freedom within limits. This is a school in San Francisco. It's actually a lower elementary with some younger children, but I want to give you actually like go inside of a 3 to 6 classroom. This is a school in Canada. This is Jackson, he's 4 years old. So you're gonna see him throughout his day. There's so much going on. I'm sure like, what is that? What is that? We don't have time to go into all the materials, but this is, again, what's possible for a child. You see how much he's doing. And the freedom within limits is that he has to put things away. After you're done with it, we have to fold it up and put it away. You can't just do whatever you want in that classroom. So I just want to give you a sense that there's limits in this classroom, but he's free to choose within that, all right? I want to go through, if you guys have questions about this in the Q&A, push back or ask me about that. And I use these pencils because if you look at Jackson's face in that, he has to make a choice. But it's not infinite amount of choices. It's these in front of me. So it gives him a space, the limit, and then within that, you choose. And you have to put in work to choose. So you're choosing every day, what am I going to work on? Versus traditional school, this is what you're working on, son. So that's a big difference mindset-wise in terms of thinking, that critical thinking. What am I going to do today? It's huge. And just Sergey Brin, co-founder of Google, interestingly, I benefited from my Montessori education, which in some ways gives the students a lot more freedom to do things at their own pace to discover. Some of the credit for the willingness to go on your own interests, you can tie that back to Montessori education. So Google co-founder, Montessori child, saying that it affected him as an adult. And wildly enough, the other co-founder is another Montessori child. It's insane, Google, Amazon, that they all were like that. And then one of their VPs had this to say about the two of them, just so you get a sense of how important Montessori was. You can't understand Google unless you know that both Larry and Sergey were Montessori kids. In Montessori school, you go paint because you have something to express or you just want to do it that afternoon, not because the teacher said so. This is really baked into how Larry and Sergey approach problems. They're always asking, why should it be like that, right? That's tough for parents sometimes, like, whoa, the why and the what is that? But that's what we want, right? So this is the part of the development in Montessori is we want them to be asking questions about the world, to be creative thinkers. When I'm putting Larry and Sergey here and Jeff Bezos, because if we're thinking about future-ready children, these are the type of people that are doing some pretty amazing things in the world, and they're attributing a lot of that to Montessori, wildly enough, right? Not everybody's child is going to be the Google founder, but they might in their own way be something like that. Yeah? So freedom within limits. Mixed ages. I'm going to go through mixed ages quickly because I think it's an easy point. But with mixed ages, I use this. Do you guys in the Dubai, do they have pictures on the cars? You guys have that? Oh, so you do that too. I didn't know if that's like an American thing or what. So mixed ages in a family, like there's some American family, there's almost always, unless you have one child or twins, most families have mixed ages in their family. So it doesn't matter if, this is a rural America, if you're going like, Ethiopia, this is old school Japan, or here in the UAE. It was funny, when I was looking up a picture of UAE family, like they got this fun, but then there's this boat in the back. It's always something pretty big and awesome. So, but it's mixed ages, right? It doesn't matter where you go in the world, we're all the same. We have mixed ages at home. And then what do we do when we put our children in school generally? Separate them based on ages. So it doesn't matter where you are. This is, America is very mixed. Look at that mix, it's beautiful. But age-wise, it's not mixed at all. It's the same ages. And this is the same no matter where you go in the world. So this is old school, traditional schooling, but it's the same today. This one's in China, it's the same. Same age, look at the kids, they're all the same height. But in families, that's just not the case. So Montessori said, what's natural for us human beings is to learn from one another, to help one another, combing hair, helping with the button frame. This is a cool material I would love to talk about, but there's not time. But she's learning math here, and this other girl that's younger is looking on, so she's absorbing it. So your older children get to become teachers of the information to the younger children. The younger children get to look up and go, and any of you with mixed ages in the home know that no matter what you try to teach one of those children, if a child can teach the other child it, they love it. So we are going by the natural development of children. So mixed ages in a classroom. And this is just with the material point. There's only one of each material in the classroom. So children need to learn patience. And when you learn that patience, you develop this sense of, care for your neighbors. An example of that, I was in a Spanish immersion classroom in Orange County. This child on the left was doing some work on his own. This child on his right was a new student to a Spanish immersion, only speaks English, so it's already a little stressful. He comes through, and there's these beads. You've seen these little gold beads, right? This child on the right, he's walking and he's bawling, crying his eyes out because his new environment, nobody speaks the language, and he's walking and he's just, and I'm sitting there, I'm just observing, so I'm not supposed to do anything. I'm not the teacher in the room. And he walks through and goes, "Wah," and he accidentally bumps all of those gold beads all over the floor. And I'm sitting, the teacher's across the room with some other children. I'm like, like with Ruby, I'm like, oh, man, I got to do something, This was early days. I kid you not, this child was working diligently on something else. He got up, walked over, and started picking him up with the other child. It was beautiful, and you cannot force that. I don't know if it's like you in America, it's like, help your neighbor, be kind. We're just yelling at children these things. But you can't, the children don't listen to words, they listen to action. So this environment builds that type of camaraderie, that connection with your peers. You want to help others if you're able to do your own work. If you're in an environment where somebody's telling you what to do all the time, I'm not going to go help a friend. That minute I have to work, I'm going to go do my own thing. But when you're free, within limits, you want to help others. So this is just an old, Miss Ann George, she's one of the early Montessori in America. Whenever we entered a classroom, I distinctly felt that a new and sweeter spirit pervaded the place and that the children were, in an indescribable way, set free. So these are the three things that go into Montessori. There's more, of course, but I just wanted to give you a taste of what's there. And then once they're out, they're out. Like, that's the world. Like, if they're able to do these things at 3, 4, 5, 6, can you imagine what's possible at 25, with independence, self-confidence, connection? I just love this picture because I think if this is these kids at this age, could you imagine like 25 and 30-year-olds and 45s working together like this? It's just beautiful. So the future, this is what the future is, in my view. Us working together peacefully among each other, among cultures, among countries, enjoying ourselves and having fun at it, right? It's not a duty. So this is Maria Montessori at the end. She says, our pupils are equipped in their whole being for the adventure of life. So it's not just preparation for life, but the adventure of life, because it's a real joy. Okay, so that is it for the talk. Thank you guys very much.